Subscribe to our channel to receive everything new in dental anatomy and histology. Hi students, today's session will be carving maxillary premolars and precisely the maxillary right first premolar. As usual, we will make the first cut, which is drawing the labial and the lingual aspects, and then we take off the excess. In premolars, draw the labial and the lingual aspects on the narrow part of the carving saw, and we will draw the mesial and distal aspects on the broad side of the saw. When we draw the occlusal aspect, we draw this box, which we said it is 28 by 36 millimeters. When we draw the occlusal aspect in the last session, we placed two marks, one on the mesial side for the mesial contact point, 1/3 the total buccolingual width of the crown, which was 12 millimeters, and another point representing the distal contact point on 1/4 the total buccolingual width of the crown, which was 9 millimeters. If we look at, this is the mesial side. When we look to the mesial side, this is the position of the mesial contact point, which comes in line with the buccal cusp tip. So we will draw on the distal aspect, the contact point 1/4 the buccolingual width of the crown. So from the maximum contour buccally, I will go 1/4 the distance, which is 9 millimeters, put a mark, then draw another vertical line as a reference for the distal contact point. On our carving saw, when we finished drawing the gross outline of the tooth on the buccal, on the mesial side, and the image on the left for the distal side, we will place these two lines for the mesial contact point and the distal contact point. This is the mesial contact point from the cusp tip down to the cervical line, a vertical line. On the distal side, from the maximum contour, I will go 9 millimeters and draw this vertical line for the distal contact point on 9 millimeters from the maximum contour buccally, but it is on the distal side of the crown. The importance of these points is that they will give us a guide for us when we take the corners from the buccal side. Buccal side, we will take the corner, and we shouldn't exceed this point of the 1/3 on the mesial side. We'll take it off this excess, the yellow line. On the distal side, you see it is 1/4. So when I take the excess, I shouldn't exceed this point, which is the distance of 1/4 the buccolingual width of the crown. From the lingual side, as you can see here, we do not have a measurement, but usually, as we did for the cingulum, we will take more from the lingual side. From the center line to the lingual side, we will take more from the lingual side. This is how the tooth will look like before cutting. This is the buccal ridge. As you said, there is a buccal ridge on the labial, on the buccal side of the crown. These two lines represent the area where the buccal ridge lies before taking the excess of the corners, and this image after we take the excess. This image for the lingual side. This image for the lingual side. This is how the tooth will look like. You can see that this is the mesial contact and this is the distal contact. When you look closely, you can differentiate the mesial side from the distal side by the position of the contact point. The mesial contact point is more toward the center of the crown, while the distal contact is more toward the buccal side of the crown. After that, you have to mark the position of the buccal cusp tip. As I said, is 1/3 the distance. We will put a mark for the buccal cusp. Then go 20 millimeters, put a mark for the lingual cusp tip. In between, draw a horizontal line which represents the central developmental groove. On the mesial side and the distal side, you have to go 1/3 to 1/4 the occlusal width of the crown, put a mark, and mark the position of the marginal ridge. Carving of the occlusal table for the premolar, it is a principle of making triangles. It is very easy. As we said, we have a triangular fossa, we have a buccal triangular ridge, we have a mesial marginal ridge. The areas in between all looks like triangles. If you can notice here, this is the buccal, this is the line from the cusp tip to the central developmental groove. If we put another mark from the cusp tip to the mesial marginal ridge, this looks like a triangle, and the base of this triangle is a part of the triangular fossa. This is the central developmental groove. As you can see, it looks like a triangle. If we put a line, the yellow line, on the area of the marginal ridge and the area of the base of the cusp, and we continue line, it is another triangle. Look at this image. This is from the cusp tip to the central developmental groove. If we put a line from the cusp tip to the mesial marginal ridge, another line to the distal marginal ridge, and continue the mesial triangular fossa, the distal triangular fossa, and the central developmental groove, these are the triangular ridges of the buccal cusp. This is the marginal ridge. With the base of the buccal cusp ridge, they will make another triangle on the mesial side and the distal side. The triangles in yellow are the triangles of the mesial and distal triangular fossae. The cusp itself looks like a pyramid. This is the tip of the cusp, the tip of the pyramid, the mesial and the distal side of the cusp. From the cusp to the central developmental groove, if we put imaginary lines, it looks like a pyramid with 1, 2, and 3 sides. The buccal side is one side of the pyramid, and the 2 parts of the triangular edges on the mesial and distal side represents another sides of this pyramid. Look, this is the tooth after we finished carving. This is the buccal cusp tip, lingual cusp tip. Lingual cusp tip is shorter by 1 millimeter. This is the central developmental groove. This is the mesial marginal developmental groove, which when we look occlusally and see this marginal ridge, this is a marginal ridge developmental groove crossing the marginal ridge and continue with the central developmental groove. As you can see here, from the cusp tip to the center, buccally and lingually, these are the sides of the pyramid on the buccal cusp and the lingual cusps. This is the central developmental groove. This is the base of the triangular ridge of the buccal and lingual cusps, and the area in green representing the mesial marginal ridge, the distal marginal ridge. As you can see, all the aspects and the forms of the sides of the cusps looks like pyramid. And the keyword for carving the occlusal table of the premolars and the following teeth, the mandibular premolar or the maxillary and mandibular molars, is to know how to make these triangles, how to hold the carver, and in just 1, 2, 3 steps you can make triangles which represent the anatomical parts of the crown. This is from the mesial aspect. As you can see, the cusp tip to the center, from the lingual cusp to the center, the central developmental groove, the triangle in yellow. This is the mesial triangular ridge, mesial triangular fossa, and these are the sides of the buccal and lingual triangular ridges of the buccal and lingual cusps.
As usual, carving of a maxillary premolar is not different from what we've done already in the maxillary central incisor and canine. First of all, we should name the surfaces: the labial, the lingual, the mesial, and the distal. Afterwards, we should divide the surfaces longitudinally into 2 equal halves, and then we should know the crown length. After specifying the crown length, we should divide the crown into 3/3 as always, because this will make easier for us to locate the different points that we draw according to. Then we should specify the mesiodistal width of the crown at cervix and the mesiodistal width of the crown at the contact points, and we draw the outline of the crown. As you know from the lecture, the outline of the crown, all the surfaces are slightly concave, the contact points are at the same level in the middle of the crown, and the cusp tip is towards the distal because the mesial cusp slope is slightly longer than the distal cusp slope. After drawing the outline on the labial and on the lingual sides of the soap, we start cutting the excess from all the sides. We start the cutting by the lines, and then we remove the excess in between. This should be the shape of the crown after removing the excess from both sides, both on the labial side and on the lingual side. On the mesial and distal sides, the buccolingual width at cervix of the crown is 16 from the midline from each side, and labially the crest of contour is at the junction of the cervical and middle thirds, and it is 18 from the midline. The lingual is 18 from the midline, but it's in the middle of the crown. Afterwards, we need to know where the cusp tips are. Okay, the labial cusp tip is 1/3 the buccolingual width of the crown. 1/3 the buccolingual width of the crown is 12 millimeters from the crest of contour. We put a point to specify the area of the labial cusp. Then the lingual cusp is 5/9 of the total buccolingual width of the crown. So from the buccal cusp, we draw a point 20 millimeters away and 4 millimeters shorter than the edge of the soap, because the lingual cusp is 1 millimeter shorter than the buccal cusp. Later on, we connect those lines together to know what is the shape of the crown on the mesial and distal sides. Connect the two cusp tips with a straight line. We do not draw the marginal ridge or the sulcus in between them, because we will leave it till the final stage. Draw on the crown the area where the contact points are, both mesial and distal. As you know from the lecture, that the mesial contact area is located at 1/3 the buccolingual width of the crown. That's, we draw a line coming from the cusp tip on the mesial surface of the crown to specify where the area of the contact point will be. As for the distal one, it's 1/4 the total buccolingual width of the crown, so we draw a line to specify where the area of the distal contact point will be. Then we remove the excess both on the labial and the lingual sides to get the shape of the crown. Now, as you can see, this will be the shape of the crown before the final stage for the roundation is. As for the stage of the roundation, you know that this tooth has a labial ridge and a lingual ridge. The labial ridge comes from the cusp tip till the cervical area, and it goes straight. As for the lingual ridge, it is more towards the mesial surface, so we draw it more towards the mesial because the tooth will taper more towards the mesial. We should always remove from the lingual more than the labial because all teeth taper towards the lingual.
Remove from the corners.
We remove from the corners on the lingual side. On the labial side, we should remember the places of the contact points as seen from the occlusal. As we said before, that the mesial contact point is at 1/3 of the labiolingual width of the crown in this area, and the distal contact point is at 1/4 the distance. So we need to remove from this corner more till we reach this line, and from the distal we remove less till we reach this line over here. Okay. Afterwards, we round the corners to give the tooth its final shape. And to demarcate the position of the labial ridge. The distal contact point should stay broader than the mesial contact point. The outline of the crown is straight or convex all around. As we are removing from the lingual, we should remember that the tooth from the lingual side looks more rounded or spheroidal and not angled as the labial side. So we need to round the corners more on the lingual side. And direct the crest of contour towards the mesial part of the crown. As you can note, the position of the contact area on the mesial is different from that on the distal side. Now to the occlusal, we draw the area of the marginal ridge. The mesial marginal ridge is a little bit more occlusal than the distal marginal ridge, and it is about 1/3 the length of the crown. And now we should specify the area of the central fossa. It should be in the middle between the two cusp slopes and not in the middle of the crown, between the two cusps. Okay? Now, the area of the triangular ridge, the crest of the triangular ridge should be kept in the middle, and then we remove excess soap from around till we reach the area of the marginal ridge from the right and from the left. The same thing is done for the lingual cusp. We remove the soap till we reach the marginal ridge. We keep a little bit of soap at the area of the marginal ridge because we want to do the carving for the triangular fossae. Now, while carving, we should draw the area of the central groove, okay, and the triangular fossae on the mesial and distal sides of the crown, mesial and distal marginal ridges. The shaping should be gradual. We might need to go over things again and again till the final shape is achieved. We need to sharpen the lingual cusp a little bit because, as you know, that the lingual cusp is sharper than the labial cusp. Finally, we draw the mesial marginal developmental groove on the mesial marginal ridge, which is slightly towards the lingual than the center of the crown, and we draw the cervical line, and the final shape of the crown will look like this. You can note that the mesial and distal sides of the crown can be known from the areas of the mesial and distal contact points. The distal contact point is more towards the labial. The mesial contact point is more towards the lingual when looking at the crown from the occlusal surface, also the area of the mesial marginal developmental groove.